Prying parents of Reddit, what secret of your child did you discover that made you wish you hadn't? When I was in high school, I had an unusual set of circumstances fall into my lap. Middle class, white, in a sort of midway between suburban and rural town. I had been dating the same guy since I was 12 or 13. He had been kicked out of his house, and being the loyal and crafty 15-year-old partner, I built a false wall under my loft-style bed, a cavity hidden behind my little mini love seat where he could sleep. He was somewhat older than me and not in school anymore, so after the first few weeks, some modifications had been made to the setup. We moved my little 11-inch bubble TV next to the couch, opened a small slit in the false wall, and ran controllers through so he could play video games without the possibility of getting caught. I also got a shoe organizer and hung it down from the bed into his little nook, and filled it with snacks. He bought the same laptop as me so I could switch them on the charger and no one would be the wiser. We managed to get by like this for a couple of months. And then I fucked up by borrowing my mom's earrings and forgetting to return them. She came into my room one evening when, thankfully, both my boyfriend and I were not home, looking for her earrings. I didn't know that my boyfriend had stashed his weed in my jewelry box, and so as she is digging through my things, she stumbles upon a cigarette box with a dime inside. This prompts a tearing apart of my room, uncovering various other paraphernalia such as condoms, lube, my dildo, a ritual knife, and eventually, the shoe organizer full of snacks. She left all of it in a pile on top of my dresser with a note on the cigarette box that said something to the effect of, "You are making bad choices and I hope you course correct." I am sure I would have gotten much worse than a sticky note if my parents had pieced together that I had someone living in their house without their knowledge, so I guess this is a reversal. I am a kid that is seriously glad my parents didn't discover my secret. My mom really liked to go through my stuff. Whenever I'd be out of the house, school trip, sleepover, she'd feel inspired to clean my room and find something to be pissed at me about. But there's one very specific story here. When I was 17, I pierced my own dick. Now, I did a lot of research. I purchased an autoclaved piercing needle, appropriate internally threaded jewelry, and Pennington slotted forceps. I did all the research, pinned it with no problem in our bathroom, and went about my life. It wasn't the smartest thing, but everything worked out. Now, I also knew enough that you can't just dispose of a piercing needle. So I wrapped it in a paper towel and then duct taped it all together. That was so there'd be no accidental pokes. I shoved that into a container tucked in my closet to dispose of later. Anyway, I was out on some school trip for a few days, and you can probably guess what happened. When I got home, my mom wouldn't look at me or talk to me. I had no idea what she was mad at me for, although I had an educated guess, so I just left it alone. I was laying on my bed in my room later when my mom walked in and just handed the phone to me. No explanation given. I put it up to my ear. Hello? Hi, this is so-and-so from Dr. So-and-so's office of urology. Your mother tells me that you pierced your own penis? Yeah? I have no idea how she knew what exactly I had pierced. I guess process of elimination, but she forced me to make an appointment. Long story short, the doctor was impressed with the piercing. Apparently the only piercings he sees aren't doing too well, and told me and my mom so. It was really vindicating for me, but she was so pissed. She told me to take it out. I told her I did, but didn't. She couldn't force me to show her, so we just went on with our lives. And then I moved across the country for college the next year. I came home from work one day to a horrendous smell. Following my nose to the kids' bathroom, I saw my daughter, then maybe 9, with a Barbie doll. Barbie was naked, and her hair had been chopped off. My daughter was holding Barbie by her little neck over the sink and had a lighter at Barbie's foot. "Talk!" my daughter screamed as Barbie's foot melted into the sink. "I told you to talk!" My first thought was that my daughter should not have access to a lighter, so I asked her where she got it. "Oh, it was with Daddy's cigarettes," she told me, as sweet as could be. "What are you doing with Barbie?" I asked her, trying to keep my voice calm. My little daughter's eyes hardened and she nearly snarled, "She won't give up any secrets, so I have to torture her." This was out of character for my daughter, and we were not a household that condoned torture under any circumstances, so that really took me by surprise. "Okay, honey, can you maybe find a way to torture Barbie that won't release toxic fumes?" My daughter thought about it for a moment. "Sure," she cheerfully told me. "And, honey, please give me the lighter." She handed it right over. To this day, I don't know what secrets a plastic doll might have held or what methods were next employed, although I did find a plastic arm on the floor sometime later. My daughter did not grow up to be a serial killer or work for an intelligence agency, but rather for nonprofit arts organizations. She opposes torture and thinks that all people, including prisoners, should be treated with dignity. She is very kind to people and animals. I have never witnessed any cruelty except for that one incident, which is still a bit alarming to remember. Used to torrent porn because that's all I knew to do. One day I opened my torrent client and see it was already downloading several bestiality vids. I assume it's just the client being spammy and gross, so I delete the files and proceed on to my vanilla fake-tittied multi-gig downloads. The next day my dad sits me down and says I should watch out for the upstairs computer because it has been acting up, or something. Says he is aware it has downloaded some gross stuff, but he immediately says he knows it wasn't me. His confidence that it wasn't me surprises me, and that's when I realize it was his. I guess he saw that somebody deleted the files and panicked thinking I was judging him, so he had to come up with a story about how the computer does that stuff on its own so I would know it wasn't him. If he hadn't said anything, that's what I would have assumed. I said torrent because my memory of back then isn't pristine. But thinking back, I think I was using Kazaa or LimeWire, probably LimeWire, at the time. 15-year-old me would have seen those applications as a magic box that can produce one 20-minute porn video at the astonishing speed of 7.5 hours. Play the incomplete video files while they're downloading to make sure they're what you want them to be, and just hope nobody notices it running on the computer and opens the client while the download is underway. The internet felt like the Wild West in those days. Not my kid, but a younger cousin, 16. I was asked by his computer-illiterate parents to fix his laptop. As it turns out, his browser was full of younger boy, older guy porn. I even found a dating profile where he was looking for much older men. His entire half of the family is very redneck and homophobic, so I cleared his history. When I gave him his computer back, I showed him how to use private browsing. I then apologized for what I was about to say, but felt obligated, then explained to be careful looking for anyone so much older as it wasn't legal for a couple of years yet, and due to this, he may be finding some real creepers. I then spent the next 4 years correcting his family and calling them out over their homophobic comments. Played the long game with changing their opinions. My cousin just married his boyfriend, and his entire family, except for one uncle, showed. First time I teared up at a wedding. Thanks for the gold and the kind words. I never would have thought that something so simple to me would mean so much to so many. As a guy with gay friends, I guess I'm not overly exposed to the trials so many have to go through just to be themselves. Internet hugs for all. Back 5 or 6 years ago, my mom got an iPad and it was the treasure of the household. She didn't let anybody use it, but always kept it in her room on a charger, mostly because she's technologically inept. One day, my 7-year-old brother was secretly playing Candy Crush on it when he heard my mom coming up the stairs. Not wanting to get caught with the iPad, he put it back on her nightstand, plugged in, and hid under the bed. What he failed to notice at the time was that not only was my mom coming up my steps, but my dad also. My dad at the time was close to 300 pounds. Since then, he's lost over 55 pounds. They open the door, jump on the bed, and proceed to do it with my little brother under the bed. Due to the weight of my dad and mom on the bed, his head was slammed into the ground with every thrust. poor kid had to endure that for several minutes and had to wait for the two of them to go to the bathroom so he could make his escape. He doesn't like to talk about it to this day, and I don't think he's told my parents about that. All he wanted to play was some Candy Crush. We adopted one of our kids, and he is biracial, while the rest of the family is white. Back when he was in 2nd grade, I found a writing assignment that the kids had to do. They essentially had to write 3 things they would wish for if they had a genie. One of the things he wrote was, "I wish I was white." That hit me really hard. I thought we had done enough to incorporate his racial and cultural background. It wasn't something we just ignored. It hurt to see that he didn't want to be who he was and that we had something to do with that. I hated that he felt that way, and I hated that I found it. In hindsight, however, I am glad I found it. It opened up the dialogue even more, and our son revealed that he wanted to move somewhere where he wasn't one of the only black kids. We did end up moving to a much more diverse area a few years later, and I love it here. My son is in middle school now and is pretty comfortable talking about racial identity. As much as it hurt finding the paper, I think it was beneficial to get out in the open. This didn't happen to me. It happened to my older brother. Anyways, my oldest brother had moved back to Arizona for the summer, and he came back, he has no shame, and he's talking to me, and he pulls out a fleshlight, but it was still in its box or whatever, and on the box were 2 anime girls with big titties, and he's like, "Look." So we both have a laugh and go to bed. A couple days later, I'm walking down the hall, and I see my dad talking to him, but my brother always has the nervous look on his face when he's embarrassed, and so my dad leaves, and I ask my brother what happened, and this is what he said. "Dad found my fleshlight behind the couch, and at first I was worried because I thought he was going to get mad at me, but instead he tried to comfort me by telling me that he's seen worse things, and he said that when he was in the Marines, one of his buddies would literally orgasm every time he heard or saw a picture of Sandra Bullock." And now we're looking at each other and just burst out laughing. That's something I'll never forget. Not even really prying, but came home from work early one day and heard the shower running in the bathroom my 17-year-old son uses. Then heard some decidedly loud, sounds of enjoyment from a female. Figuring none of them wanted to deal with the embarrassment of an interruption, I retreated to the living room. About 15 minutes later, my son and his girlfriend come downstairs and are quite surprised to see me already home. Figuring this would be a good time to twist the knife a little, I said, "So, what were you guys up to in the bathroom together?" My son stammered out, "Well, we had been in the pool and we wanted to wash off the chlorine and we were in a hurry, so we went together, but we kept our bathing suits on." Then his girlfriend looked at him like he was the world's biggest idiot and said, "That's what you're going to go with?" He looked at her and said, "Yep, that's what happened." She looked at me and said, "Okay, we're going with his story." I told them it sounded reasonable. My friend and I made a prank video for my girlfriend in high school on one of those original flip disposable video camera things. The prank was us sitting on my bed saying one line of dialogue. "I hope girlfriend never finds out about us." Then we pretend to kiss as the video falls to the floor. Now you can only hear us making sex noises for a minute. Anyways, as funny ideas go, we forgot about it and never let my girlfriend find the video. Fast forward about 6 months, and my dad comes into my room shaking, red-faced, holding the camera. "What the fuck is this? I can't believe you did this in my home. You're never allowed to see Tim again." I was so scared and hurt that my only response was, "You can't tell me to never see him again. He's my best friend. I do everything with him." I was so flustered that I never even told my dad I wasn't gay. He might still think I'm gay. Maybe I am. I missed him. Not parent, not the kid in question. Probably worse, though. I've told this story on Reddit before, but no one really cared. I'll post the cliff notes anyway. Media class. Make group YouTube account. 3 of us share a YouTube account. Me 15, her 16, her female friend 16, her younger brother 11. See where this is going? We go to her house to film. She stays logged into YouTube on her home PC. Fast forward a few weeks later in class, searching YouTube and cloud history while connected to the projector. Multiple and repeated 11-year-old girls in white panties, video and search variations almost daily. Girl assumes it's me and that I've been stealing her underwear while at her house. Not fun. Rumors spread. Teachers got involved. I denied everything. Got suspended, threatened with being expelled, ended up in counseling. Got billed for underwear I didn't steal, too. Ended up leaving school a few months later. All because that little shit hadn't discovered Pornhub. When I was 15, I took a Polaroid of my completely naked boyfriend and kept it hidden under my waterbed mattress. Later on that semester, we had some family issues and my twin sister and I were sent to live with my grandma for a few months, and I worried about that pic the whole time. When we returned, my mom had decided to surprise us by cleaning our rooms and found the picture of my boyfriend, standing like Captain Morgan in all his glory, but never said a word to me, so I had no idea. Flash forward a couple of months, and I'm snooping around my parents' bedroom, and I find that picture stashed in her private drawer with her other private things, and I accidentally leave it on their bed instead of putting it away, and my dad finds it, and all hell breaks loose with him yelling, "I thought you threw that away months ago." Wasn't my child, but I used to work in a phone shop and I was transferring this kid's photos to his new phone. It was the first of that model I sold, and little did I know it had a pre-installed app that showed a gallery on the second homepage after you swiped right. I was explaining how to use it, and the default image the gallery function decided to select was a fully frontal nude photo of this poor kid's junk. Frankly, I didn't know where to look. He must have only been 13, maybe 14. I tried to subtly shift the phone away from his mom, but she had already seen it. He got an absolute public telling off in the middle of the store. Went on for some time while I was just awkwardly holding this phone with a photo of the kid's dick. Good times. You get to see some interesting things on people's phones. This one is a fucked up one. Brother told my mom that he has been using Brother 2's computer to download music. This is the era of LimeWire, maybe 2007, and saw that Brother 2 had literally thousands of CP stuff on his computer. My brothers were in their early 20s. My mom checked Brother 2's computer and confirms that her child is downloading child porn. What does she do? Nothing. She even bought Brother 2 another laptop when his became unusable due to the amount of viruses and malware. 2 years ago, the feds raided my mother's house. Plot twist. They were there for Brother 1. He started to download CP. She now has the honor of having both of her sons in prison and as sex offenders. Of course, she makes it all about herself. It's a shame. Brother 1 was the one who was supposed to make it. Not really the prying type, but grabbed my 9-year-old daughter's tablet to show her how to get to her Gmail inbox using her web browser. Her email client was misbehaving. There were like 7 open tabs of porn, and her web search history had a boys peeing search. Shocked me and the wife. She's 9. That was when we decided it was time for a bit of anatomical and reproduction info, which of course fell to me. My wife was thoroughly incapable. Yes, she has her own email, and she emails me constantly while I'm gone during the week. I'm a truck driver. She also plays Skyrim and is a level 36, two-hand-wielding whirlwind of a Khajiit. She also thinks Legolas from the Lord of the Rings movies is, in her words, super hot. So please, continue telling me how badly I'm failing at parenting. I was probably 11 or 12, maybe younger at the time, and recently discovered the wonderful miracle that is masturbation. I had a bunk bed and got naked under the covers to do my thing, when my door opens up and in walks my dad, just looking to hang out and see what I'm doing. I didn't know how to respond, and he sees that I'm covered from the neck down, so he thinks I'm trying to hide something, and so ensues him laughing, trying to get me to show him what it is, and I nearly have a heart attack trying to stay covered. He soon realizes what's going on and says, "Oh," and walks out. My dad's a pastor, super embarrassing at the time, but not the only time I've been caught since. Not a story about my child, but it fits. One time, this good friend of mine was trying on clothes in the living room, and her mom noticed her daughter's neck was full of hickeys. Her mom asked me if I knew anything about them, but didn't seem very convinced when I said no. Sometime after the first sighting, the two of them went out to shop for clothes, and she also found hickeys on her daughter's breasts. I thankfully wasn't around for that one because if I was, I'd probably run out of the store. I already find it hard enough to look this woman in the eye without thinking, I've done unholy things to your daughter, but this made it even worse. She does like me though, somehow. My wife and I are both retired, so we volunteered to house sit when my son, his wife, and their 3 kids spent 6 weeks in Europe last summer. We discovered their video collection and were surprised to find their favorite pastime seems to be hosting gangbangs with my daughter-in-law as the center of attention while our son films the action. We were floored, but never said a word or let on in any way. They're both great people, loving parents, and responsible professionals with great careers, and we're not going to let this kink change our opinion of them in any way. But we do kind of giggle and snicker to ourselves when they ask us to have the grandkids over for the weekend. Golden shower vids on Pornhub in my 12-year-old's browser history. Update. For those that had comments about the whitelist, it's not a strict whitelist. I use OpenDNS, which starts with a whitelist database with selectable categories. Unknown sites after that have to be discreetly added. As far as comments about oppressing my daughter's sexuality, we have open and healthy discussion about those things. It's just not centered around fringe videos found on the internet. For comparison, I don't talk about world news while sitting around watching ISIS beheading videos either. Those that think otherwise should really take some time to call Child Protective Services or their local law enforcement officer's office and vet the legality of how they think they should be raising their children. My mom was going to take my brother's vehicle to get the brakes fixed. She noticed he had a disposable camera on the front passenger seat that was full and had one of her own to take in for development, so she picked it up and dropped it off at the local photo place for development. She sent her assistant to pick them up later that afternoon. Boy, did the assistant and my mom get an eyeful. My brother had been at a country music festival up in northern Minnesota the previous weekend, and the entire camera was full of my college-age brother getting a blowjob from a woman who is about my mom's age. That when my son spends the night at his best friend's house, he doesn't do so to hang out with his friend. Instead, he is hanging out with his sister, playing dress-up, having tea parties, and giving each other makeovers. Less than 12 hours on this account and already over 3,000 upvotes and gold? Thank you all very much. As of this morning, I have scheduled a meeting for me to see a professional and discuss what would be best for him. Also, rip my inbox. I'm sorry, but there is no way I can reply to everyone. But I will read every comment. We are a pretty open family and encourage our kids to come to us with any questions, but kids being kids, I caught my oldest snooping through my computer using the home group. Clearly, I wasn't trying to hide anything, but seeing files with updates that I knew I hadn't looked at in forever keyed me in. So, being the troll of a dad that I am, I spent some time tracking down the most bizarre sex act videos I could find and leaving them in my download folder and renaming them. He finally figured it out and said, "Okay, Dad, that's totally fucked up. A lot of nasty sex stuff in here. Let me add some wholesome memes to the mix." My 5-year-old daughter was riding in the backseat, auto-babbling away. Eventually, she said, "Daddy, I don't think you know this, but when I was young, I used to pick up little bits of things off of the floor and put them in my mouth." "Really? What kind of things, sweetie?" Pieces of paper, fuzzies, things like that." A thoughtful look crossed her face, like she was trying to make a really difficult decision that would determine her fate. Finally, she settled on honesty. "And I definitely ate a flower once."